Today's podcast is brought to you by AlleyRepair.com. Don't leave your skee ball machines lying around collecting dust in the basement. Let AlleyRepair.com bring those machines back to life. High quality workmanship for your skee ball playing needs. Contact AlleyRepair.com today. Hello everybody and welcome back to this episode of Fro Life Wrestling Podcast. In this episode we're going to discuss all the happenings in the wrestling scene. We're going to get started today with the news of the day. Jerry Lawler had this great interview out. You can find it on multiple different outlets, WrestleZone.com, etc., talking about if he was booking a promotion right now, who he would build his brand around. And he said very clearly, even though they're not the newest talents, John Cena and Randy Orton, because of their longevity and what they can do and their commitment to this business, would be the people he'd build around. I find that interesting because you would normally think it would be somebody like a Finn Balor, a Neville, AJ Styles, people who are younger. I shouldn't say younger. AJ Styles is like 37, but a lot of the younger talents, because then you have them for over the long haul. But Cena and Orton, contrary to what a lot of people may or may not realize, they're not that old. You know, Randy Orton started in this business and was the youngest world champion in history. He's not that old. Mid-30s is not old. When you got people like Ric Flair who wrestled very actively to be 60, this is not old. All right, so it was cool to see that he would still support Cena and Orton as his primary talent if he started the promotion. Before I go into any of the other deep stuff, I got to throw this out there. Happy birthday to the Big Show. So happy for the Big Show. You know, right now with his whole transformation of his body, losing all the weight, being under 400 pounds, I appreciate the Big Show. For the guy to be his age, doing what he's doing, and still looking good doing it, it's awesome. And as, you know, a bigger guy myself, I can only wish I could drop the weight that he's been dropping. Like, that guy, role model to people. And to see the pictures he's been putting out online, the guy looks jacked. So happy birthday go to the Big Show. I got to throw this tidbit in there. I saw something today that just thoroughly just blew my mind. WWE is a master of capitalizing on ridiculous and stupid things. The Booty-O's cereal, things like that. Well, now, for a low cost of $25, you can go to WWE shop and you can purchase your very own copy and your very own version of Chris Jericho's The List. That's right, you can have a metallic looking clipboard with a piece of paper tablet on the inside and pay a cool $25. What an amazing marketing ploy to make money off of something so ridiculous and stupid. Kudos to Chris Jericho for coming out with something so funny that WWE was able to capitalize on it, which I'm sure he's getting a nice cut of the revenue from that. And honestly, he deserves it, because that's just, I can't believe people do that. In another interview this week, Daniel Bryan was discussing his potential future, whether or not there's going to be any payoff between all this stuff with him and The Miz. He gave the famous never say never thing, but it's almost like a downer when he talks about it now. It's like you could tell the guy wants to come back. He said as far as WWE is concerned, it's not happening, but the reality is you can tell how much he wants it. And all these other doctors, it has been reported that he has other specialists who have cleared him to return. But WWE, being that they have been sued by so many people, are hesitant to put him back in the ring. And they don't want to do it. So he's really stuck in limbo. It sounded like he's very thankful that they've given him the role that he has, but it's very obvious he would love to be back in the ring. And I'm really, for one, I'm hoping that happens at some point in the future. You know, with all the breakthroughs in medical science and the way they attack some of these issues, I'm really hoping that we find a way to see Daniel Bryan at least one more time in the ring. So we'll see. He did have a funny segment on the Talking Smack episode this week where they were talking about where James Ellsworth was and Carmella, and they had this whole thing where he said that the boys in the back call him James Hogsworth, and they call him James the Big Hog Hogsworth, and Renee Young was dying, and it sounded like it was one of those things they probably didn't plan, and she could not control herself. It was so funny. So if you don't watch Talking Smack, you really are missing out on the opportunity to see some really funny stuff. So please, after SmackDown goes off the air and 205 Live is done, go check out Talking Smack, because that was hilarious. Moving on, we're going to go on to the Darren Young situation. He got hurt a few weeks back. He's going in for surgery, going to see Dr. James Andrews. It looks like he's going to miss WrestleMania. Darren Young's one of those talents. I feel bad for the guy because he looked like he had so much talent when he was first starting out, and he really has gone nowhere. And then he gets an injury like this. It's almost like Zack Ryder. You start to build some momentum, you're gone. You know, it's a shame because the guy clearly could contribute a lot bigger ways than they've let him. So good luck to Darren Young. We wish him a speedy recovery. In the Ring of Honor world, Donovan Dijak is finishing up with Ring of Honor. He's leaving the company, and he's going to be going to work for Evolve over the WrestleMania weekend. What I find interesting, and I said this the last podcast episode about Michael Elgin, is there's such a great working relationship between Evolve and WWE. I'm hoping at some point we see Dijak come to WWE through Evolve. And he's another one of those Ring of Honor talents who's just, I mean, they're really great talents. They would bring a lot to NXT. At some point, I mean, I know people don't like having one godfather promotion like the WWE, but the reality is they do it bigger and better than anybody, except maybe Wrestle Kingdom. But the reality is, if you bring enough talents in and you create enough buzz and enough energy, and you created the NXT brand, if you get too many talents, you create another brand. There's never going to be a shortage of wrestling fans. I understand that viewership in January, the post-Rumble Raw saw like 3.5 million people versus 5.5 million people like 4 years before that. I get that you're down a couple million viewers, but you still have 3.5 million people watching your show every week. And there's like a competition between Raw and SmackDown where you're drawing that kind of people multiple nights per week. There is really opportunity now that they have their own network to really showcase more and more and more talents and put on more and more shows. And if you could bring people in like Donovan Dijak and all these other people they've been bringing in, go for it. You know, it can't be bad for business. It can only be good for business. I'm not going to say it's best for business. I think we need a bigger promotion to rise up, but still, if no one else is doing it, let WWE have at it. Bobby Lashley, cool interview this week talking about how his potential for ever coming back to WWE. He didn't shut the door on it, but he did say he's happy in TNA, but he was real clear. He would love to have a match with Brock Lesnar, and I don't think there's a wrestling fan out there who wouldn't love to see this. The parallels are just amazing. Both great amateur athletes before professional wrestling, both had WWE careers that ended in a somewhat controversial way. Both went to mixed martial arts. Brock came back to WWE, but Lashley went back to TNA. The two have never been in the ring for any substantial contributions. It would be cool to see them get in the ring and see what they can do. Both are just genetic freaks when it comes to their athleticism. So unlike a lot of matches that are big man against big man, I actually think they could put on a pretty entertaining match. So I'm hoping at some point that match happens. And I think Lesnar would enjoy that match too, to be in a ring with somebody closer to his caliber of wrestler. So we can only hope that materializes sometime in the future. But with the transition in TNA and the change of ownership, you know they're going to want to try to keep as many premium talents as they can. So we'll see how that works out. But hopefully in the future, that's a match I would really like to see. Alberto Del Rio was in the news, have a whole conversation about his last experience with WWE, talking about how he felt like they needed him more than he needed them. He was smart with his money and he invested it wisely and all these kinds of things. He made reference to them needing him to appeal to the Latino and Hispanic population who watches the show. I get that, but you know, at the end of the day, Del Rio is an insanely talented wrestler, but he's been such a smug and arrogant person since leaving WWE, and even while he was in WWE, that I can't get into him anymore. I just can't. Alberto El Patron is kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. He seems like such a stuck-up jerk. So, you know, whatever. If he doesn't want to come back to WWE ever again, I'm not going to cry anything about that. It is what it is. But I just found it interesting that he seems to be so self-righteous about who needed who the last run he had with WWE. On the topic of Del Rio, though, 2 tidbits about Paige. The Rock is now working with WWE Studios to write a movie about her lifetime. That'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And then she's also did an interview where she talked about once she's finished with her career in wrestling, there's some contemplation about her potentially going to mixed martial arts. I don't know how much of a legit fighter she is, but she's dating and engaged to a man who has a mixed martial arts background in El Patron. And if anybody would be a great partner to pair you up with to get you ready for a soiree into the mixed martial arts world, I suppose that would be a good thing. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. I'm going to talk about Austin Aries for a moment because, as I've been saying the last couple episodes, his interview style and mic work has been phenomenal, but, and I'm so happy to say this, they announced this week that he has been cleared to return to the ring, and now there is some backstage conversation that Austin Aries may make his return at WrestleMania to face Neville for the Cruiserweight title, and I cannot describe to you in words how much I can't wait to see that match if it happens. I am a monstrous raving lunatic Mark fan for Austin Aries, always have been, and to see him get a WrestleMania moment for any championship against a talent as awesome as Neville, that is poetry in motion. They could steal the show at WrestleMania if WWE allows them to go out there and do what it is that they do best. So I am really, really looking forward to that if that comes to fruition. You guys know that after the Royal Rumble, I put out there sometimes what the betting odds are on pay-per-views. Well, they've released some of the odds for the Elimination Chamber and for Fastlane. And I find it interesting. The Elimination Chamber betting odds have Bray Wyatt with a 1-10 odds, meaning he has a 90% chance to win the Elimination Chamber and go to Mania to face Orton. Pretty much everybody in the world could see that coming. There's no other reason that they gave the Royal Rumble victory to Randy Orton unless he was supposed to face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. So, I think that's almost a done deal. If you had to pick a second favorite, the second person on the list is a 4-1 favorite is John Cena, which mathematically says he has about a 25% chance to win the match. Yeah, whatever. John Cena, he just got the title. If you're going to take it off him already, he becomes a transitional champion. He gets number 16 only to lose it a month later. I think that's kind of crappy, but I guess storyline-wise, it's what you need to do. We'll see how that shakes out. I expect Wyatt to win. I've been saying that every time we talk about it. The other odds have Randy Orton beating Luke Harper, Nikki Bella over Natalya, Mickie James is projected to go over Becky Lynch. It's about time Mickie James comes back. She's finally going to get a win. And then it has Apollo Crews and Kalisto supposed to go over Ziggler. The Ziggler thing for me, if you're going to have him go against Crews and Kalisto in this handicap thing and lose, the only way I would book that to be interesting in any way and not bury his character is to have some mystery partner come out and work with him and go heel and help them take out Crews and Kalisto. I don't think that's going to happen, by the way. That's just my fantasy booking in my head, but I don't understand why they're burying his character with these schmaz horrible endings to his matches, losing to Crews, beating Kalisto up multiple weeks in a row. He's doing nothing important. A person of his talent level should be in something better than that. I mean, he literally could be doing the same thing that Owens and Jericho is doing with somebody else, and it would mean a whole lot more to the product. So hopefully something positive comes out of this handicap match. They actually released some of the odds for Fastlane. I'm only going to cover one, and that's the main event. Bill Goldberg is a 1-10, 90% win favorite to take the Universal title. I don't know if anybody else was paying attention, but I've been saying that since before the Royal Rumble. Bill Goldberg has to win the title because this Brock Lesnar match doesn't mean anything. If Brock Lesnar goes out there and beats him, he most of the time when you have a feud, a guy wins once, the other guy wins the second time, and you have a tiebreaker. That's not the case here. You have a win by Goldberg, an elimination at the Royal Rumble by Goldberg, and now what, Brock's going to get one win and then it's supposed to be the end of the feud? That doesn't make any sense unless there's something bigger on the line, and that would be the Universal Championship. Bill Goldberg is booked for some speaking appearances after Mania, which really doesn't have much effect on a wrestling opportunity, so not sure if Goldberg really is going to go away after Mania. I hope he does not. I don't need him to be an every week talent, but it'd be nice to see him work with some other people. And it seems like WWE's doing the right thing this time. They're working with him and booking him the right way, that he's not he's not the rival guy from WCW like he was the first time. So hopefully, Goldberg will win the title. He'll face Brock. Brock will probably take the title at Mania, and then it sets Brock up for a feud to somebody, which I hope and I pray, and I mean that, Braun Strowman and Brock would be awesome for Extreme Rules or one of those pay-per-views, but we'll see how that shakes out. Remember, today's date, I'm predicting that Brock Lesnar is going to be facing Braun Strowman for the world title at Extreme Rules. If that doesn't go down, I never said it, and you guys are my witnesses, but I'm just saying. We're going to quick recap 205 Live, and then we'll get on for the rest of the episode. 205 Live this week, Tony Nese is now hurt, which was frustrating because it seems like every third talent on 205 Live is getting hurt. Tajiri and Tony Nese and Rich Swann, and these guys do such high-flying moves. You better have 1 million of these guys on the roster because somebody's going to be getting hurt every other week. They have a match on 205 Live between Mustafa Ali and Arya Daivari to see who's going to take Nese's place in the Fatal 5-Way. They have that match. Mustafa Ali wins. They announced that Gran Metalik is going to be coming in next week. Sweet. Great talent. I'm glad to see them bringing him in. There's an interview with Brian Kendrick, which is what it is. He kind of puts over Akira Tozawa and talks about how he sees promise in him and whatever. He ends up having a match where he goes over Lince Dorado. decent match, typical Brian Kendrick match. I haven't liked a lot of his finishing stuff since he came back. I think they could book him a little stronger than what they have. After the match, Austin Aries comes out to interview him again. I can't stand all this interview this, interview that, interview this. Like, just do one interview. But anyways, he interviews him again. Kendrick calls out Akira Tozawa to talk to him and offer his respect. And Tajiri hits the ring, blowing the green mist in his face and all that. Just a really cool segment. I'm a fan of Tajiri. I can't help it. I met Tajiri in Philadelphia back in 2003, and he was so welcoming and so friendly. So I'm a fan. I'm happy he's back. It'd be cool to see him and Kendrick, two older cruiserweights, go at it and see what they can do in the ring. Neville, they have a segment where he talks about each of his potential opponents after the Fatal 5-Way heading into the pay-per-view. We'll see how that shakes out. They go into the Fatal 5-Way, and this was actually a really solid match. And I feel bad that it's on 205 Live, because if you put this on like a SmackDown or a Raw or something of that caliber, you may actually build more interest in your brand, because this was a good match. It sees Jack Gallagher win the match, and Jack Gallagher is going to challenge Neville at the pay-per-view for the Cruiserweight title, but just the high spots and the skill level of some of these guys. Look, I love watching Brock come out and just destroy people, or Braun Strowman come out and destroy people, Roman Reigns, or whoever. But you gotta appreciate some of the newer styles of high-flying wrestling. You know, Rey Mysterio has been doing it for forever, Chris Jericho's of the world, things like that. But this is like a whole new level of just insane spots and everything else. You know, I can't imagine what WWE would do with somebody like Will Ospreay or Ricochet or Kota Ibushi or Kushida or somebody like those. You know, I hope to God they bring some of those people in, but what they've got now is just really, really talented. So it was really cool to see that match. Congratulations to Jack Gallagher. Solid guy. You know, he's funny. The guy's so white he's clear. With that red hair, it looks like he's like Sheamus's baby brother, but at the end of the day, he's entertaining. I love the umbrella thing too. That's just hilarious. For today's look back match, YouTube owes me so much for all these plugs I give them, but YouTube, if you go there and you look for a match, search for King Kong Bundy and Ravishing Rick Rude versus Jerry Lawler and the Macho Man Randy Savage. The match that took place back in the early 80s down in the Memphis area that Jerry Lawler was running. Cool back and forth match. It's funny to see, like, anybody who knows anything about the history of the people involved in the match. The great early matches between Rick Rude and Randy Savage. Randy Savage had feuded with Jerry Lawler all the way into a cage matches and all this other stuff. Bundy doesn't look anything like he did in his WWE run. He's actually looks a little thinner, and he looks awkward compared to what he did when he came to WWE. But cool matches to look back at. You know, I like to throw those out there every now and again, because I think a lot of times the newer wrestling fans haven't had the opportunity to see some of this old school stuff. And when you go back and you pull this stuff up on YouTube, YouTube's a beautiful thing, because you get the opportunity to relive some of those things, or if you never saw it before, you get the chance to experience some of the things that really made people like me. I mean, I'm 40, and I feel like it was only yesterday I watched some of these matches, and really the things that made me a fan, and you guys can still live those now. If you get another chance, if you want to look at another match that I highly recommend this week, go back and look up the Rockers versus Playboy Buddy Rose and Pretty Boy Doug Summers. It's an AWA tag team feud that took place back when they were still the Rockers. They're actually the Midnight Rockers against Summers and Rose, and they were managed by Sherry Martel. And you'll see a few matches will come up in the search, and they're all good. There's one that's a total bloodbath, where Jannetty and Michaels get busted open, and they brawl all over the place. There's one where they win the AWA Tag Team Championship. There's a few where they ripped off out of the AWA Tag Team Championship, but whichever one you look at, those are all solid fun and entertainment as well. Don't forget, if you have any questions or comments or things like that you want to pass on to me, I'll try to address them when I see them in the YouTube feed for your comments. Please send those in. I love getting those. Please, if you are a new listener to our program, please give us a subscribe or give us a review. The reviews actually help with places like iTunes and Stitcher move our podcast higher up the list, and it brings in more talent to listening to our broadcast. So by all means, if I can ask anything, please give us a review and a subscribe. And if we're not doing well, shoot me a comment about that too. I'll try to find a way to spiff things up for you and find a better way to present it if you don't like what we're doing. Our pro wrestling plug for this episode, Chikara Wrestler Factory. 4711 Wingate Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you are looking to get into the world of professional wrestling, the Chikara Wrestle Factory specializes in lucha libre, pura-su, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling curriculum at the Wrestle Factory. They strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. That's all the time we have for this episode, but check back with us in the next episode where we're going to cover all the things happening in the wrestling world. We'll keep you posted on all the pre-WrestleMania, Fastlane, Elimination Chamber stuff. Hopefully the pay-per-view will be a solid go this weekend. As always, special thanks go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all of our music and sound effects used throughout today's show. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games, bringing a new friend to family game night. It's easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side with this new game from Beazle Games and bring some fun, some excitement, some creativity back to family game night. Go to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And to AlleyRepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade needs. And on a personal note, I've seen this person's work. Phenomenal. Off the charts. You ought to see the slew of talented... The slew of equipment this guy has. Absolutely amazing. So if you have any needs for that type of stuff, video games, arcade games, skee-ball, whatever it is, give this guy a shout. AlleyRepair.com. He's phenomenal. We want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you in your path to higher education. If you're looking to go to college and you're not entirely sure what you should be doing or what the steps are to really make yourself a top candidate, to fill out applications, to get commitment letters and things like that, contact us today. We can help you with those things, because remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today, and we look forward to discussing more current events and rumors on our next episode. Hopefully this weekend's pay-per-view will be as solid as the last one, and we'll have a whole lot to talk about coming out of the Elimination Chamber. Take care, everybody.